Daniel Crane, and I'm the Programming and Community Engagement Manager here at the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship. And today is our Global Industry Spotlight. Every Thursday at noon, we talk to entrepreneurs, businesses, and organizations that are, what they're up to, how they're navigating kind of in a pandemic, post-pandemic, and just connecting with our community. We are very excited for our guest today, Ajanta, a good friend and an extraordinary entrepreneur in her own right. Let's bring her in for a conversation. Oh, yes.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very good. It's great to see you.
Likewise, yes. It's been too long.
I know it has been too long. So I know Ajanta from some of the programming that I did at Navy Pier. She is quite a force and an energy to be reckoned with. And it has also created a lot of, a lot of different things I'd love to talk to you about today. So the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship, we're about, educating and providing resources for entrepreneurs, right? And you are definitely an entrepreneur. You are the definition. You developed Bollywood Groove, which is a dance company that you can take classes. You also do performances at different spaces, and then you also have, your books,
Yes.
which my wife and I have one that we have the Holy One,
Oh,
that my son loves. So can you talk a little bit about just your own journey of, hey, I'm going to start my own thing, and kind of what helped you get to that place?
yes, absolutely. So, now I've been dancing all my life. I started at age 5, so I'm classically trained and all of that. But it was always sort of a hobby or a passion on the side. And then I was a techie. I was like a hardcore Silicon Valley software engineer, computer scientist, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, as geeky as you can imagine. I literally. And from there on, what happened is that once I moved to Chicago, is because my husband got into Kellogg, and so we kind of wrapped up our life in Silicon Valley. We moved over here. And quite honestly, I wish I had an inspirational story. What really happened is that I supported him through business school. And then the
Mm-hmm.
moment he graduated, I said, my turn. And I just up and went, just quit my tech job. And I said,
Yeah.
I'm a shot. But I
Mm-hmm.
have to say that one of the reasons that I did it is because I could also see that Chicago at that time didn't have much going on in
Mm-hmm.
sort of the Bollywood space. There were some classical dances, which is great. They're beautiful. But Bollywood has a certain sense of joy in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I really thought we could do more with Indian dancing and joy at that time, which was kind of my inspiration to start my own thing.
Yeah. And then how did you, what was the process of starting it? Did you have to find a space, or did you just start with classes, or how did that kind of what was the beginning look like? What did the beginning look like?
Absolutely. So I was too hesitant to have my own space at that time, mostly
Mm-hmm.
because kind of wanted to see how the market would react, right? This wasn't something that was well established. I was kind of educating the people at the same time trying to sell my service, which is
Mm-hmm.
very tricky as an entrepreneur. I mean,
Right.
I'd walk into a room and people would be like, belly dancer. And I'd be like, no, wrong country. So it was so it was a little risky to jump into finding a space at that time, which actually saved us in the long run, but that's
Mm-hmm.
just for us. So what I did start is that I had started a company back in Silicon Valley,
Mm-hmm.
which we wrapped up when we ended it. So I kind of knew the nitty gritty of it, how to go about sort of setting up your LLC, what kind of paperwork do you need, what kind of licenses do you need. Did all of that research for Illinois. Oh, Tasha's here. Hey. Sorry, I love to say hi.
Yeah, of course, of course.
So I knew some of that paperwork and nitty gritty stuff already, but
Mm-hmm.
most of all, I did not have a business background. Like I said, I was just a geek. I learned everything on the field. So I just one day I said, I'm going to put up a thing that says I'm going to teach a class and we will see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
However, the only thing I knew that I needed was collaboration. So my goal was to identify studios which would actually give me the opportunity to to do something different, but and also at the same time help me promote, because I didn't know anybody. When I moved to Chicago, I knew exactly 0 people. And so starting a business is tricky when you don't have a network.
Right.
So my best friends were the studios. They are the ones who got me started. And I truly said, I need your help, otherwise I can't do it. And I've worked with some amazing studios over the past decade. So I would say they were sort of the big step in getting us where we are, you know?
Yeah. And so then you started classes, and that grew, and then you hired teachers. And then how did you get into, kind of performing out, like was it like, how did you break into that space?
Yes, absolutely. Again, it was all collaborations. It's like one thing leads to the other. It was such a domino effect. That's one of the best things for me in Chicago, is just kind of way the community welcomed us, right? So yes, we had some instructors and we had started. Then at the same time, I said, let's start doing some troupe. Let's start to create a troupe. I think we've made like 5 different versions of the troupe so far, learning along the way. But once we put the troupe out, it was actually the private gigs kind of started flowing in. There just aren't that many troupes in general that perform. It is a lot of effort and very hard to sustain one. There's a good reason why other people don't do it. I should have paid attention to that. But anyways, I just took it on. But it was somebody who contacted me for a nightclub. They wanted me to come do a lesson. And from then on, they mentioned to someone who was doing, what is it called? World Music Festival. This is 2010. And in World Music Festival, they wanted to do a dance session. And because the nightclub person had seen me in action, they recommended me there. I just showed up by myself. I had no troupe. I just danced it out, whatever I could. But that kind of was like our first in, if you would, on something that was bigger than a private gig. And from then on, it kind of built from there. So much of it was all entirely word of mouth. There were no paid Google ads. There was nothing that I did. It was all like blood, sweat, and tears every day.
Well, I mean, and I think that it's nice to hear the origin, though, how you had to connect with different studios, and also that little side part of can you help me market, right? Like, I don't just want to be here, but I also need help in collaborating and getting people to the classes. And then talk a little bit about, okay, so you create this Bollywood movement in Chicago, and then we go to Culture Kids, right? Then you start to develop, kids books, which I think are fantastic. And, it's really nice for Madeline and I to, read it, and our son loves it. He loves the Holy Book with Chintu and, the squirrel. It's awesome. So talk a little bit about kind of, now you've added something to your plate.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll talk about it both from a passion and a business point of view, because I think both are important. A lot of time as artists, we tend to only focus on one and forget the business side of things. So what had happened is that when it came to adults, my goal was, can I give you a joyful experience through Indian music and movement? And that's it. I didn't have the goal to make you a competitive dancer or anything of that sort. When it came to kid, I had a bigger motive. And that was, can I get you curious about the culture? If you're of Indian culture, can I help you strengthen your roots? If you're not of Indian culture, can I get you curious about a different culture? Because then maybe you'll go out and seek out other cultures as well and grow up multicultural. And so what we did for the kids was very different. And this was, if you think about it from a pure business analysis, it might seem kind of not the wisest decision, which was to do something completely different. We did not just teach a dance class. We taught a whole cultural element around that. We put it into the context. So we would take a theme, and then I would build the dance around that. And then, I didn't have books at that point. So I'd make these sad little PowerPoints, and I would print them out, and I would show it to the kids and say, look, this is what you're dancing about. But they loved it because it became more meaningful.
Right.
So that's what we started in 2011. And I think we are one of the only ones in the country that does that. And then that kind of exploded from there, because parents loved it, educators loved it, kids loved it. They got a break to sit down for a minute or two. They appreciated that. You know, like how active we are. And so all of that kept going on. And then in 2016, it was actually my husband Vivek's idea. where he said, you have all this cultural teaching. Why should they have to come to your class to learn that? There is no reason for that. It should be accessible all the time. And also, we realized there is a gap in the market. So if you looked at children's books on India in 2016, this wave of diversity hadn't come yet. And at that time, there were barely anybody who was writing about this. And people who wrote about it sometimes got very religious, which doesn't appeal to everyone, right? To some people, it's great. But if you, and we are also not the people who want to write in a religious angle. Every book I would pick would again talk about religion. I'm like, that doesn't gel with me. And so that's kind of, it was a gap in the market. It was a desire to offer something different. And the third was, how do we make cultural learning kind of accessible to all? That's where the idea of books came about. And at that time, again, the big publishers were not writing about Indian culture. Let's just be super honest about that. We're like, if we wait for traditional publishing, we'll be sitting here for 10 years showing our manuscript around. No one's going to talk to us. We're going to do this ourselves. And we went and figured out, print on demand. And yes, I have 10 of these now that I've written, 10 storybooks. And you know what? We've done great. They're sold in 12 different countries. I believe we've crossed 55,000 copies worldwide.
That is incredible.
And for an independent, tiny publisher like us, that's a big deal.
Yeah, that's a massive deal. And so who does the illustrations?
We have an illustrator in India. It's very important for us to find someone in India because we literally draw out the scenes as close to reality as possible.
Right.
In fact, on my Instagram channel, I do a book versus reel where I'll show you what the real scene is versus what the illustration looks like in my book. So yeah, you check those out. But yeah, it's definitely, it had to be someone from India.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. And okay, so you're amazing. And moving forward, yeah, I mean, I just, that's why I said, you're the real thing in terms of an entrepreneur. I mean, to self-publish something and have it be that successful, that's a lot of hard work. Okay, so pandemic hits, everything shuts down.
Yes.
How has the last year been for you? Where have, what's it been like?
Awful.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? Oh my gosh. We were in the middle of our annual show session. This is our most important session. 250 students put on beautiful outfits and put on a whole day of production. This is what we live for like 1 year. Right in the middle of the session, pandemic hit. I knew we weren't going to be able to do anything. Within a couple of weeks, we were like, this is here to stay. A lot of people thought they were going to be out in a month. And I was like, I don't think that's happening. So we pivoted to virtual pretty much overnight. In 2 weeks, we had our virtual classes set up. I was like, let's just see what happens. That really paid off. So 6,000 signups and more so far to our virtual classes, which again, considering that, we're not like a big chain or anything, I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
Revenue? No, can't match it. There's no way. People, even though my effort to teach a virtual class is actually more than an in-person class,
absolutely.
but the value that the customer gets is not the same. Whatever you say, the child is not in front of me. So we had to lower our prices, and that has definitely had a pretty solid impact on the business revenue. That's just the truth.
Right.
So I had to go back to the corporate world and reach out into my techie roots and marketing. Here's the thing that I realized over the last 10 years is I actually love marketing. And so I found an ed tech company, and now I head their North America marketing, right?
Wow.
10 years ago, they would not have even looked at me for something like marketing, saying she's a geek. And now here I am. So, it's everything, all the skills that I learned are still being used in one way or the other. So
really
virtual classes, and I have the same kid who's been coming to me since March of last year. They are still dancing with me, and they're all around the country. And I think that's beautiful. I think there is something special about that as well,
Yeah.
And then we built more on the virtual. So we do these free monthly story times. I have a wonderful community of about 2,500 families. Not all of them join, obviously, but a good portion of them join with me every month. And I do these free story times for them when I read about cultural stories and whatnot. So yeah, we found different ways to kind of find new avenues through virtual since the pandemic has started.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too, thinking about like your transferable skills. How when you become an entrepreneur, you become an artist, you have to pick up on all these tools, marketing being one of them.
Yes.
And so like you entered the world, the entrepreneur world as a techie, and then you built this whole, for lack of a better word, this Bollywood empire of education and multicultural, happiness. And then to head back into the corporate world, they're like, what's your marketing experience? You're like, well, independently, I've done X, Y, and Z, and I think, that's like, we don't, and this is something that I can relate to, is that I didn't realize the skills that I had built as an independent artist or somebody who was on my own. You're not aware of it, and then you're like, oh, like this is this is something that I can really do, or I like to do.
Yes.
So if someone is moving to the city, doesn't know anybody, and wants to start a dance company or a multicultural organization, what would be some of the tips that you would give them? Let's go specifically with dance.
Don't. No, I'm kidding.
Ajanta, it's not supposed to mean don't.
I'm kidding.
No, it's funny because my son is like, oh, maybe you'll, people are like, oh, maybe he'll be a musician like you, and I'm like, no, absolutely not.
We know better.
Yeah.
So the truth is that it's nice to have something on the side. If you want to do something that actually pays your bills and you want to earn a decent livelihood, you better do some insane amount of marketing analysis, like the market analysis, before you get into it. And I know it's such a dry and boring piece of advice, but it's literally, I would say, one of the most important things, because at some point you will hit that bar where things will start to plateau, in terms of how much you can grow and how much revenue you can bring in. And if you're looking at this as a profitable enterprise that you want to build, it is very, very important for you to have done that, market research, and make sure that there is enough space for this. That would be one of the biggest things I would say. And second is, I would say again, the same thing. Find other people who've done this, ask them for help, like literally get on meet with them, have some coffee with them, and then just try to learn from them. Most of them would be very willing to help you, unless you are directly competing with them. Then sometimes they won't. Even then, if they're at a very large scale, they will go out to help you. So that's one of the other things. Reach out into the small business resources, like yourself. There are so many such organizations that are literally sitting out there to kind of help you with your business plan, to help you with, if you need capital, how to go about that,
Right.
The nitty gritty of leasing a space and so on. All of these things, I think there are more resources than we realize. Like, I had no idea. I don't remember the time. There's so many people I could have reached out to get even a bigger head start than I did. So I would say look out for small business resources, have these collaborative, partnerships. But I would say the very important thing is that you also have to give back. So even when beginning, right, I didn't have much, but one thing I did is I marketed that venue in every way possible. So I treated them like my own homes, like I had 4 of them. And you really have to put in that effort as well. Like, you might not have something to deliver right away, but do whatever you can. Create meaningful partnerships. It should not be a one-way street, Then people really go out to do things for you as well. So I would say those are some of the things I can immediately think of.
Yeah, those are great. It's like, oh, you're almost ready for a TED Talk. It's like, so just the whole story. Well, no, I think it's really important. It's something that, I definitely remember as when I was playing music. It's like, if people came to support my performances, I would go and support theirs. It was, and those relationships are what helped me build a good foundation for my career in the city. I still work with a lot of those people, or those people are still in my ecosystem. So, all right. Well,
and you work so beautifully with them, like myself,
right,
that we forever want to be connected with you. So I think there's a lot of, the gratitude from us as well, especially us little artists who you have the platform.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that was what I was really grateful about my time at the Pier as well, that, I got to connect with so many wonderful people, and we were able to build some things that were, that are going to continue on once, things are even more opened up. So, well, Ajanta, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. It's great to see you. I can't wait to see you in person. And we'll definitely, buy some more of those books for the kids.
Oh,
And
thank you.
and I wish you a wonderful rest of the week, and we'll be in touch.
You too. See ya.
Awesome,
Bye.
Ajanta. Take care. Bye.